Welcome to Quit Bleeping Around, a podcast dedicated to helping you achieve more in life. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hey, superachievers. For today's episode, I'm interviewing Mike Young. Mike is a certified people person working in the learning and development field who believes humanity in an organization's practices is paramount to a successful brand. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we jump into making a difference, can you share a little bit about your background with our listeners?
Yeah, so I am a man of many trades, and professionally, I'm a learning professional. I work for a mid-sized financial company in the learning and development area, and I actually just I just got my degree. I just got my bachelor's degree finally one day ago. And so so it's very exciting to have gotten to where I am without that. So I started as a branch associate in bank branches and just kind of worked my way through a few different organizations. And in addition to that, I'm also a Gallup certified strengths coach, which is something I very much love to do when I am not on the clock. And I'm also a musician, singer, songwriter, guitarist, and I have a YouTube channel where I try to share a lot of that knowledge with folks. And so I'm really always at it.
Oh, that's awesome. So now, and I can see how this our topic can kind of bleed into a lot of different areas of your life. Yeah. So we're talking today about making a difference. Can you first maybe share how this started in your life and the results of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was raised very much like do what you can for other people and never quite knew what to do with that knowledge, right? And there's kind of a moment for me that changed how I view my contributions to the world around me. There's a great TEDx talk, TEDx Toronto, by Drew Dudley called Everyday Leadership. And in this, he introduces the concept of the lollipop moment. And that was really what kind of woke me up to it. I don't want to tell his entire story, but I'll share the concept was very much around how we make leadership this big thing, right? We have to move the world. We have to change the world in order to say that we accomplished something, that we changed something for someone. And he proposes that we change the world every day without even realizing it. Because if you even just slightly change one person's concept of the world around them, you've changed everything, right? You've shifted their way of thinking, and that has a trickle effect. And he also speaks to how you have to have faith in that because you're doing it and you don't know it. So there's a lot of faith involved in believing that. And so after seeing that video, I couldn't stop telling people about it. And I was like, this is really giving me that boost to believe that it gave me the channel, or it gave me the avenue through which to channel that energy of, I want to help others. So that's a little bit about how it really kind of came to the forefront for me.
Oh, wow. So that's the origin story, we'll call it.
Yes,
what happened after that?
So after that, I didn't do much, right? I kept on the same path that I was on. At the time, I was working as a facilitator for a specific branch of my company. And then a few years later, but I still carried that with me. So I started doing little things, right? I started saying more hellos to strangers, just little kindnesses every day. And I started to believe, we all have our different belief systems. For me, I put a whole lot of faith in the idea that a hello can go an incredibly long way. You never know. And you have to, it's interesting because the imposters in us want to say, there's no way I can have this type of impact. I'm too small of a cog in this massive machine. But I started to believe more that if you really believe that you can make a difference, you'll start making a difference, right? If you can really believe that the little things that you do can affect somebody in a positive light, you'll start to do more of it. And you also start to realize that the things that you do could affect someone negatively as well. And so I became more conscious of the things that I say and around, depending on who I'm around and how that might impact them. I might have overcorrected sometimes, right? It became and treaded a little bit into people pleasing. But I found this great balance that I allowed to take me into my day to day. And so my career trajectory went towards, I'm now in a role where I can't have a bigger impact in my company unless I were to get promoted. But in terms of the nature of my work, I'm able to affect and have some sort of influence on the learning experience of every single person at the company, which is a huge responsibility. But it's what carries me through every day. Just believing that doing this, making this deck, creating this learning program is going to have an effect on somebody, and then they'll talk about it, and those things will trickle out in ways I could never imagine.
Yeah. I love how you talk about, because there's the intention, right? There's an intention behind what you're doing to make an impact. And I think that, brings so much more fulfillment in life.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Living life with intention is, it's funny because I'm looking over, because as I'm saying that, there's a whiteboard on my wall, and I watched this video, and it talked about how we try to cram too much into a day, right? And we look at the big picture and think we all have to do it today. And they were like, what if you just narrowed down your daily goals to stay sane and stay kind, right? Just super simple, stay sane and stay kind. And there was another video that I kind of combined the two approaches, and he speaks to the SPIRE model. So looking at your day, looking at your week, do something that touches on each one of those letters. So S is spiritual, P is physical, I is intellectual, R is relational, and E is emotional. And so I'm looking at my whiteboard, and just one thing a week. I just, if you touch the video, he talks, it's about the key to happiness, right? And if you do these things, if you, it's almost like when you're feeling tension in your body, the worst thing you can, and you want to release it in a specific spot, the worst thing you could do is focus on releasing tension in that spot, right? In meditation, they'll do that. They'll have you do a full body scan rather than say, just focus on the fact that your throat is tight, and you're going to stay tense because you're focusing on it. You're putting all this mental energy. Similarly, when we're looking for how do we be happy? How do we find purpose in life? To me, that's not the question, right? Because that's us focusing on the thing, and it almost becomes stressful to find happiness. And so I kind of like this approach of living with intention, but not necessarily trying to change the world, right? Taking that same mindset that you apply to the outside world, little things, apply it to yourself. What's one thing I can do for my spirit? And when I say spirit, I'm speaking very much like right up there is find one beautiful thing a day. That's my mission this week, right? And so it might be my cat basking in the sun. It might be I'm walking down the street and hear a child's laughter, which sounds corny, but it's so true. Like, you start to notice these things more. And so, I found that those little things, it applies outward as well as inward.
Oh, I love it. Now earlier you had mentioned you found you were able to walk the line, between being a people pleaser and then maybe not doing enough. Now, what would be your advice for those? Let's start with, because there's a lot of people pleasers out there. Yeah. What would be your advice for those to make sure that they want to make a difference, but they're also, keeping themselves in mind in that whole process?
It's interesting because I'm currently in a bit of a personal renaissance when it comes to that. It's only within the last year. someone very important came into my life and helped me to really see how much I was doing for others and how little I was doing for myself. And it was once I got shaken up, I was like, oh, like this is the advice I would give to somebody else. And so it seems counterintuitive, but you got to start with yourself. It makes me think of the oxygen mask on the plane, right?
Yeah.
So when an oxygen mask falls, there's a reason that they tell us to put ours on before helping others is, well, if you try to put someone else's on first before you put yours on, you faint. You're no help to anybody, right? And so that's another philosophy that I take to other parts of my life. It's not perfect, right? It's very hard because for us to feel like, for many of us to feel like we have value, we have to do for others.
Yeah.
But what we need to realize is the oxygen mask. We're better. We do better for others when we do better for ourselves. And so the staying sane, staying kind, you got to do that for yourself first. And there's little things that you can do. I mentioned the SPIRE model. I would definitely think about that. Like sit down for 10 minutes at the start of the week and think, what's something I can do spiritually, physically, intellectually. And to break this down again, I explained spiritually. Physically could be literally yoga, going for a walk, moving, right? Something for your body, eating healthy foods, literally physical. Even
getting enough sleep,
making it something that you focus on for that week. Intellectual, of course, is learning or exercising your gray matter. Relational, man, this has to be, for me, the most powerful. Because it feeds into that. It feeds into what we're talking about when it comes to people pleasing. And so people pleasing comes from a couple different, and E, of course, is emotional, right? So something that you can do to look after your brain in terms of allowing it to have an outlet.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to people pleasing, that motivation, I would say first find out why you're doing it. If it's to find a purpose, take my first piece of advice. And remember that every little thing that you do, work on having faith in that. Work on yourself and work on having faith that you don't have to move a mountain in order to create a pathway for someone. You just may not always know that it's happening. It's think about all the people that have affected you and you haven't called them and said, hey, remember that one thing that you said 5 years ago? I just want to let you know it changed my life. Right? So imagine how many people we're doing that for and they're not calling us. Right?
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely if your motivation for wanting to please others is and show up for others before yourself is because you want to have a bigger impact, start having faith in the impact you are having. And don't be afraid to ask people, right? If the motivation is coming from, a lot of times we think of fawn is a term that I've come to be familiar with. There's fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of people leave fawn aside. And sometimes people pleasing for me manifests in a conversation where I'll say, just very basic example, you know what, my favorite color is blue. The other person says, I really don't like blue. I prefer red. And then I go, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess red's a good color. Maybe not so much blue. Yeah, I mean, I could go with either one. The fawn response is like, how do I create instant harmony, even if it means rejecting something about myself, a belief about myself. Wow. And that's how it manifested for me. And so my advice to those who are dealing with that very thing is coming back to investing in yourself. The more that you make yourself the first person that you need to show up for, the more you will find yourself coming into conversations with confidence, coming into conversations with a feeling behind your ideas that you can really contribute something. You start to feel, when you combine those things, investing in yourself and knowing that everything that you do or say can have an impact, you start to have more confidence in the things that you say and that you believe.
Yeah. I can see how that could also positively impact the positive relationships in your life, and then maybe help clear out those negative relationships where people are essentially manipulating you.
Yes, I've lost friends.
Yeah. Yes.
um,
But people that you like, really, the positive ones, though, they're appreciative of you finally setting boundaries. I can see.
yes, and that's been
Yeah,
the big
I'm
thing.
speaking from experience.
I'm sure of it. When you start to boundary setting, don't even get me started, or do get me started. But about
Let's do it.
boundary setting has been another huge part of that journey for me.
Yeah.
All of this, by the way, has led to everything that I named as far as what I do outside of work, right? Outside of my primary job. All of that came about within the last year. So everything that I'm talking about, so much of it
Wow,
has,
lots of
rather
growth.
than besides the lollipop moment, the realizations of staying sane and staying kind, of working on the people pleasing, that has come within the last year or so of my life. And so my YouTube channel, recently I sat in with a band. They were just like, sit in with us and we're going to see if you have what it takes. And now they want me to come back. I never would have done that in my previous life because I
Wow.
was so stuck in imposter mode. And another thing that really helped with that confidence and forming my identity was boundaries and setting them and
Yeah.
communicating them fairly and enforcing them. That's one of the harder parts.
Yes. Yeah, it can be pretty scary when you first start doing it
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, what else? What else I heard essentially, or it made me think of it, is it's well, it's not probably. It's a good idea for us to reach out for those who've had an impact on us and thank them and show some gratitude for that. And I think if more people do that, we would be able to see the impact that we're having on others.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because it comes back to be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
How often do we want things from others that we don't give to ourselves? Let alone what you give to
Mm,
them. But how often do we want things from others that we
yeah.
don't give to ourselves? Um, and again, it becomes, in my opinion, it becomes easier to give to others when you are giving to yourself. The oxygen mask.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's a great thing. That's a great call out, is as we think about, like, what are the things that I want from the world and the people in it, the second question should be, how much am I giving that to the people around me? And
Mm,
so that's a great call out,
yeah.
is who are we reaching out to and showing that gratitude for? Gratitude is a very powerful tool. Strongly recommend
Yes.
it.
There we go. So that'll be our first call to action in making a difference, is think about people who've made a difference in your life and reach out today or tomorrow, but just sometime soon.
and don't make a mountain out of it. It doesn't have to be a 12-page
Exactly.
formally written letter sealed with a wax
No.
seal, right? It can literally just be,
Yes. It can be just a simple little
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. Don't make a mountain
Just a
out of
little chat or a little message on LinkedIn or wherever. Yeah.
it. I promise you,
I
they will
love it.
not be expecting it, and you will make their day.
There you go. And then, are there ways that people can maybe they're feeling bad, they're having trouble feeling like they are actually making a difference? Are there some little ways that they could maybe see the immediate impact? Like, one thing I'm thinking about for whatever reason is maybe because we talked about cats earlier, is maybe volunteer like at a shelter, and you can immediately see like the gratitude and the little dog tail wags, or um, I don't know, any kind of quick wins, I guess I'm looking for, that you would recommend for making a difference.
Yeah. So volunteer work is a very powerful way to get a quick win in. And I've talked to a lot of people who are averse to volunteer work, not because they don't want to help, but because they feel
Hmm.
it's selfish that it's fulfilling to them. That's kind of that, and I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was me, right? And I
Wow.
started seeing it in other people, meaning like you don't have to be good to other people purely out of their benefit. you're allowed to benefit.
Exactly.
Right? Like, but there, I think sometimes we get this mental block in our head that like, I have to do it for purely altruistic reasons. And so,
nope.
Right. Like, get out there. How much, this is what I like to think when I hear that. I'm like, okay, so let's say there's someone who could have benefited from, let's say your generosity would have been simply giving someone money who needed it, someone who was in need. How annoyed would they be if they didn't get their money because you were worried that it was fulfilling to you? They'd be like, help me. I don't care why you're doing it. Just help me.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so
it's an added benefit.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so if there is a hump that's stopping you from engaging in volunteer work, or something even less organized, if somebody stops you on the street and is in need, right? And they're saying, do you have $1? Or can you get me a drink of water? It's hot out here. That's all I need. Do it. You got $1? Do it. If you don't have $1, please don't just walk by and just, you have no idea how powerful in that moment.
At least acknowledge them.
Yes, they're human beings. And we know that.
Acknowledge a fellow human. Yeah.
We know that, but we're afraid of the thing that comes after, because they might say, hey, how's it going? God bless. And you're like, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't have any, you pat your pockets. But that's even a little way, just acknowledge the person and it doesn't involve, Chris, it involves some self-talk, right? It involves some, I need to tell myself that I just made an impact in some way, because not everyone will.
Yeah.
So even something as simple as checking in with yourself at the end of the day. What's something that I did that might have impacted somebody positively? And you'll start believing in the power that you have.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, the time has flown by.
Oh, wow.
So normally at this part, I would ask about products and or services, but can you share a little bit maybe about your YouTube channel and how people can get a hold of you or look you up?
Yes. So my YouTube channel was born of this philosophy, right? It's, if I have around 400 subscribers as the last time I checked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like 400 people I might be helping. And then their music helps others. And then and I'm like, this is amazing.
Yep.
And so you can find me on YouTube under the Daily Songwriter. I use my stage name, which is MLY. It's my initials put into first and last name format.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a little trick. You can also find me on Instagram, MLY Music. That's EMMELL is the first name. And then Y, like the word, is the last name. And those are really my two social presences. You can also find me on LinkedIn, of course, under Mike Young.
Cool. We'll include links to those in the description.
Fantastic.
Okay, we're there. Your final piece of advice for our listeners.
One thing at a time. Baby steps. Little things. You can't see it, but I've got Atomic Habits on my bookshelf here. Check out that book. It's a great one.
Yeah.
But just make sure that when you're trying to create change, whether it's creating a daily habit or trying to help someone else, start with the little things. Focus on the little things. Get the mountains into molehills.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Mike.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to learn more about Mike, follow him on LinkedIn or follow his YouTube channel, The Daily Songwriter.
Interested in expanding your employee development program? Visit ChristinaEanes.com to look at the many workshops Christina has available for you.